This video is sponsored by AVG. Recently, I reviewed the behemoth of the 55-inch Samsung Arc, and whilst it's marketed primarily as a monitor more than a TV, I definitely felt that it was more of a TV with monitor features. And actually, it turns out you can buy this gigantic 65-inch Samsung QN95B QLED smart TV and still be left with some change when compared to the Arc. And this TV comes with one really valuable thing that could actually save you a ton of money in the long run. But how practical can a QLED TV, and particularly one as gigantic as this one, actually be? When it comes to pure specs, the QN95B is pretty fully featured and actually in many ways similar to the Samsung Arc, but there are a few differences. For one, there's 4K 144Hz refresh rate instead of the 165Hz on the Arc. We've also got Dolby Atmos with 8 multi-directional speakers instead of the 4 speakers and 2 subwoofers. Yep, 2 subwoofers built into the back of the Arc. For gaming, we get all of the usual variable refresh rates and FreeSync Premium Pro, along with Quantum HDR 2000. It also runs the same software as the Samsung Arc, and so provides a pretty much identical experience, and comes with the same 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, which all sounds very fancy, but put together means that this screen really has a lot going for it. Now, the Samsung Arc comes in at a pretty staggering $3,499, which is actually $500 more than this TV/monitor. Now, if 65 inch is too big though, you can get the 55-inch version of this screen for $1,200 less than the Samsung Arc. Now, for that price, you could buy one of these and still have enough money to get yourself a gaming console or a pretty decent PC upgrade. Now, there are of course going to be some drawbacks with a screen of this size, which we'll get to of course, but I want to first address something that is a massive improvement on the QN95B over the Samsung Arc, and that is the situation when it comes to connectivity. Now, something that you don't get with a normal computer monitor is a separate box where you connect all of your devices like PC, cable TV, games consoles. Then from this box, you just run one single cable into the back of the actual TV, into the back of the monitor. So you avoid having all these kind of ugly wires dangling out the back or dangling out the sides of the screen. Now, usually this is in a totally separate box, which then sits underneath your TV, like nearer the devices you're connecting to it. But with this TV, it's still in a separate box, but it's actually really nicely integrated into the back behind the stand, and with a cover that kind of lets you hide all the cabling to keep it looking like really, really minimal. Now, this I feel is a big improvement over the Arc, which has this separate standalone and very gigantic separate box. So I definitely prefer this more integrated approach. Now, in terms of inputs, we actually have the same 4 HDMI 2.1 ports as the Arc, but once again, there's no USB-C, no Thunderbolt inputs. Though considering this is designed primarily as a TV and not a monitor, that is kind of to be expected. What that does mean though is to get the full 4K resolution and at the maximum 144Hz, then you're going to need a computer that's equipped with a HDMI 2.1 graphics card, so either a RTX 3080 or a Radeon RX 6800. Now, for first impressions, this thing is big. This is like ridiculously big. I don't really even know where to look. It's just insane. Now, it feels like the first time I've used a 49-inch ultra wide, and back then I thought, that was ridiculous. Now, it is of course kind of hard to imagine what a 65-inch screen would look like on a desk, and well, yeah, it kind of just looks like that. That's pretty insane. I did actually have a concern over using a TV because, most TVs are quite mirror-like and reflect the light from the room. This does actually have a anti-reflective coating on it, which should prevent any glare and lights from being introduced. But at least in my room, certainly at the very top, if I'm sitting up close to the screen, I can see the reflection of my room lights as well. And as you can see in the reflection on the camera there, you can see the reflection of some, some quite bright lights we have right here as well. Now, in terms of pixel definition, it's not going to be as good as a smaller 4K display because with smaller screens, you get much higher pixels per inch. On the G9 Neo, for example, it's 108 pixels per inch, and both the 55-inch Samsung Arc and the 55-inch version of this screen are 80 pixels per inch. This 65-inch model, though, is 68 pixels per inch. So, yeah, you can see the pixels if you look from maybe around a foot away from the screen. But honestly, when sat at a normal distance away, it's not actually that noticeable. But using this, you do, of course, have the ability to blow up anything you're watching on that full screen display, which just looks stunning in full 4K resolution. And in terms of resolution, actually, I have to say I am loving the extra vertical height that you get here. It's something I actually miss a lot from the 49-inch ultra wides. And weirdly, this actually feels better than a Samsung Arc. Like, perhaps that's just because the price tag is so low compared to, $3,500 to the $2,000 price. But having the additional vertical resolution means you can keep so many more things open on your screen at once. Now, if you're anything like me, I'm the guy who has like 15 apps open at once, along with like 30 Chrome tabs that I never close. Maybe that's more of a Mac user thing than Windows, where you just, normally split in half and have 2 things or maybe 4 things at one time. If only Macs could keep up with Windows when it comes to like graphics and gaming performance, or at least with being able to display more than 60 Hz on their HDMI ports. Now, before I tell you about probably one of the biggest and best reasons to consider using a TV instead of a gaming monitor though, a quick shout out once again to AVG for sponsoring this video. AVG offers protection for Macs and PCs across business and personal computers. I actually remember using AVG Internet Security way back in the 90s on my dad's computer, so they have decades of experience with a product that's always been excellent at blocking bad things from getting onto your machine. To get up to 60% off for the first year, click on the link down below and check out their multi-award-winning security and features such as enhanced anti-ransomware and additional protection on accessing your webcam to a firewall that blocks anything suspicious, and with their 4.3 star rating on Trustpilot, you can be sure that you're in safe hands. So thank you once again to AVG for sponsoring this video and for supporting a small creator such as myself. What I would recommend though is changing the scaling within Windows to 100%. For some reason it's set to 300% by default, which basically just means everything's going to look absolutely like ridiculously big on the screen. But by doing this, you're going to get back an absolute truckload of screen real estate. On the Mac side though, even though you're stuck at 3840 by 2160, it only feels like it's marginally too big. Like, you can easily see everything on the screen, but of course with a 65-inch screen, then having an even bigger resolution like 5K or perhaps even 8K would mean that apps and text wouldn't be so big. So that is certainly a bit of a downside. But where there are drawbacks, the HDR capabilities, where this is a TV first and like a PC monitor second, are, well, second to none. HDR content on devices that support HDMI 2.1 with games and videos look absolutely stunning, with like the deep blacks shifting to like the bright colors beautifully. Something you might still struggle with, and something I most definitely am struggling with, is getting the maximum performance out of this screen. Now, of course, with up to 144 Hz, you're going to need something pretty powerful to output anywhere close to the maximum 144 frames per second. My gaming PC is getting quite old now, and I'm actually waiting on a new case to be delivered, where I'm teaming up with a national brand to build and give away a new gaming setup. So make sure you're subscribed to see that one and be in with a chance of winning it. And actually, giveaways are something we're looking to do more of as the channel grows. So for now, on both Windows and on my Mac, I can get the highest resolution possible on this screen, but I can't get HDR, nor can I get 120 Hz, let alone 144 Hz. That's more of a me situation though, but I can comfortably play on my Xbox Series X or PS5 to get the maximum 120 FPS that those support. It's something that's actually frustrated me a while now. On my PC with the 2080 graphics card, which admittedly is a few years old now, it doesn't support HDMI 2.1. Now, I thought I could work around that by using a DisplayPort to HDMI cable, but that actually makes the image look worse and still doesn't work around the issue. And even then, my PC struggles to put out 4K 60 FPS in games, let alone 120 or 144 when playing games. So I can't wait to get that upgrade. Of course, with this being an actual TV, you can also use the included remote control, very, very similar, if not the same, I think, to the Samsung Arc, with a solar panel on the back to keep it charged, and perhaps even save yourself a few dollars of electricity then when watching content by just switching off your PC and then using the TV as, well, a TV. You can watch YouTube or Netflix or Disney. There's even a built-in gaming hub where you can stream Xbox games without even having to have your Xbox there, though the quality and responsiveness leaves a lot to be desired on that. You'd be much better off just using the Xbox or PlayStation 5 instead. And when you do play proper games on a proper console or PC, this thing does look incredibly good. With a combination of all of the tech in this TV, you do get a responsive, high-quality gaming experience, though I would recommend using something of this size at more of a normal distance when gaming. So maybe sit back in your chair or use it as a TV and wall mount it, or put it on a TV stand. Actually, if you did do something like this, wall mounting would be a really good idea, I think. The stand itself isn't actually that intrusive. It's actually far less intrusive than the Samsung G9 Neo stand, but being able to put something this big straight onto a wall would actually give you back that vital foot or so of distance, which could make all the difference to feeling like you're constantly having to turn your head trying to see everything on the screen. Now back to the display itself, and with Tizen you also get a very familiar software experience which spans across Samsung's like smart TVs and smart monitors, including being able to split the screen into two different inputs at once. Now, for some reason, you're not able to split screen two HDMI inputs. So you can only show one HDMI source, so a PC or gaming console, and then have a native app running like a web browser or YouTube, or even mirroring your Android phone down the side, which is pretty cool, admittedly. But as a computer come gaming monitor come TV, you can't actually have a games console one side and have your PC on the other side with perhaps a, your Discord or messaging app going. And it's the same story with the Samsung Arc, so I assume there's maybe a technical limitation as to why you can't maybe process two HDMI signals simultaneously. But it's still frustrating when this is something you can do on many kind of smaller computer monitors like the G9 Neo. Now, there is also another significant reason to buy one of these TVs over something like an Odyssey series monitor, and it's something you might not think of when making like a purchasing decision, and that is the warranty. Buy something like an Arc or a G9 and you'll get a 2-year warranty, but buy something like this and you have a 5-year standard warranty, and that is quite something. Like, I'm sure we've all owned a TV or a monitor at one point that's gone wrong within 5 years of ownership, so you may even see more savings further down the line when you don't have to buy a replacement monitor for like 2 years after purchasing the first one. So after initial impressions, is this a sensible thing to do? Like, should you look at one of these over something like the Samsung Arc? Yes and no. Like, sitting here right now staring up at this like monstrosity in front of me, I can't tell if this is incredibly clever or incredibly stupid. Now, I'm definitely missing having a curve on a display, mainly because as you get to the edges of the display, it just feels a bit awkward. Whereas with the curved screens, and particularly the 1000R curve that Samsung have in their kind of series of screens, it feels way more natural just to use them as they wrap around you. But in the case of the Samsung Arc, having a curve and maybe some added LEDs will then cost you an extra $500 to even $1,200 if you go for the same 55-inch version of this screen. Now, you'll also need to make sure you've got a powerful enough PC to take advantage of the high FPS. And the size, well, perhaps consider getting a smaller 55-inch model, depending on the size of your desk. But I'm actually starting to really like the 65-inch. Like, yes, it might be taking it a bit too far, but actually it gives you a ton of screen for those of you who do some like serious multitasking without having to repeatedly minimize or go hunting for windows. If anything, and I said this in my Arc review, but for something this size, if they just slightly curved in the sides, but also slightly curved in the top and the bottom of the screen, I think that would actually make for a really great experience. Even just the curves on the sides, I definitely miss that, but I'm not sure I would pay an extra, $1,000 plus just for that feature. My recommendation, save the money on a Samsung Arc and consider either a 65-inch like this if you have the space, or perhaps a 55-inch version that's cheaper, or even the G9 Neo instead. That's still my favorite screen of the whole year. And I'm actually also about to test out the new OLED Samsung G8 Neo, which will be coming in a few weeks, so subscribe to see that one. But if you want to know something that's even more out there than this gigantic TV/monitor thing, and that costs much less than either of these options, then check out this video to find out more.